do with your percentage of liquor sales or your percent versus your percentage of food sales. So, it was distressing to say the least, but I'm glad Randy brought it to my attention, because we've had several others throughout the state, actually, who have been undergoing the same kind of thing that unfortunately you have too.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky. I have a Series 12 license, so I'm still able to be open, but it's frustrating to see that there is, realistically, there's no difference between a 6 and 7 and what I have. Like, I understand, like, the nightclubs are a little bit different, and the late night crowds that crowd around the bar at a Series 6 and 7 license, because I'm right next door to a Dos Gringos. And so I understand they have the later night crowd, but I mean, I have crowds that crowd around my bar, and I'm defying everything. Like, I'm not at 50%. And so, I mean, it's just one of those things that, how do you distinguish the difference between the two?
That's the problem.
Why I don't understand why he's doing what he's doing. It just doesn't make any sense.
So Jeannie, are you shut down then, or you're still operating?
No, see, I'll remove this so you guys can see me. So I have a Series 12, so okay. Per his order, I'm still allowed to be open.
Oh, okay. I thought you were shut down or okay. So
no.
That's good. Okay. Yeah. So that's good to hear that you're.
So technically, I'm supposed to be at 50%.
Okay.
Actually,
Mr. Sheridan, you never look so good.
Oh, you too.
I feel much
Supervisor
better.
Supervisor Chucri, how are you? Hey, I voted for you, by the way.
And I did, and so did my wife vote for you.
Thank you, sir.
But Jeannie, here's the reality. The reality is that we met with the CDC a week ago Friday. Actually, it would be 2 weeks to today. And we said, why are restaurants taking the brunt of this? We are not the cause. We're not the petri dish. Tell us if we are, right? Tell us what we should be doing. Right. And I understand the proper distancing and everything else, and making sure that we're using good sanitary protocols and everything else. But they said we're not. The fact of the matter is they said that we're not. And when Mayor Gallego went on Face the Nation 2 Sundays ago and said that restaurants should shutter, I sent her a 2-page letter. And I said, where's your evidence? Where's the empirical data that shows we should do this? No response. You know what she did? She handed it off to Congressman Stanton, who has been criticizing the county. And Congressman Stanton responded to me, telling me how we're doing everything wrong and everything else. And my response to Congressman Stanton was, Congressman, I never sent you a letter, so I don't have any idea what you're talking about. So we are pushing back. The fact of the matter is, I'm glad you're not shut down. However, here's one of I think the key disappointments, and Jerry will understand this because he lives up in that area. But for example, Cave Creek, Harold's, you know Harold's, right, Jerry?
Yes, Larry Wentz should be on this link too. He owns the Buffalo Chip.
Oh, right, yeah, Buffalo Chip, same thing. Both of them. And Buffalo Chip was shut down after. And so the reality is, and where we've been pushing back on the governor's office, is that you can't go back to pre-COVID and say what were they doing and how are they operating, which is very subjective to these DLLC inspectors. And Harold's did everything right. They put tables on their dance floor so there couldn't be dancing. They did every effort. They made every effort they could to try to comply and keep people from standing, all those things that, whether they're good or not, we have yet to see, but supposedly they are. And yet they still said, well, it's how you were operating before. Well, that has no basis. And I'll be honest with you. I think some people in the governor's office who we've spoken with said, hey, we agree with you, Steve. We're outnumbered. Well, that's problematic to me, and we're raising it with the governor. So I want you to know we're kind of all singing from the same hymnal here, and it's very frustrating, very frustrating.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I see it every single day. I mentioned the Dos Gringos next door that is closed. which is realistically no different than what I do every day.
Right.
And then I'm in the same parking lot. I have 2 gyms next door, which I know that they take every precaution known to mankind. And then I'm in the same parking lot as a huge Walmart, which I can say that my restaurant is superbly more clean than that restaurant. I mean, that Walmart that's in the same parking lot here, you know, that they allow so many people in that they don't clean that as much as I do here, you know, and I'm sure that both of these gyms are more clean than that Walmart is there, you know, so it's just that it's the pick and choose. And how do you do that? You know, like they're able to do takeout, they're able to do curbside. So why do you force a restaurant to close down, but you don't force those places to close down?
You hit the bullseye. That was my comment to every mayor calling me and every U.S. senator calling me saying we should shut down restaurants. I said, hey, I'm fine with that. So tell me when Home Depot is going to be closed. Tell me when the Fry stores are going to be closed, when Best Buy, when all the others, because you're suggesting to me that COVID-19 can't be spread in retail establishments. That's, you know, I'm from Lebanon, or my family's from Lebanon. We have an Arabic word for that. It's bullshit. And that's the reality. It really is. It's nothing other than pure BS with their lack of empirical data and everything else. So, you know, when you push back on them like that, I will tell you, they understand. And they say, well, wait, okay, we get it. But can you do this? Can you do that? I said, yes, of course we can, but only if other people are doing it too. And retail should not be excluded from this conversation.
Actually, can I intercede real quick?
Sure.
Okay. I'm glad that you're having this discussion, because what you're saying is taking a common sense approach as to the fairness of it all. And if we want to get into the legal side of it, constitutionally, I like your Arabic term of it, it's bullshit, because it is not something they can do at all. And the fact that the matter is you guys all took an oath of office. And the Constitution is real clear. I spent a lot of time to make sure that everyone got the same information regarding the sections that are violated. We have at minimum 4 U.S. Constitution sections that are violated. We have equal amount of state constitution. The fact that we're talking about the COVID virus being transmittable and all this stuff is irrelevant. It makes no difference, because government's function is not to provide for my safety. There's nowhere in the Constitution does it say that. The function of government is to ensure that the rights of the individuals aren't being violated. The government can make recommendations, you know, based on what we're hearing. These are the conditions we have. We recommend that, you know, you take these precautions. As long as a business such as Jeannie or Larry's is following the guidelines and the law that's written, then they're within the parameters of the contract that they have with the state to stay open under their license. And to come in and arbitrarily and capriciously say, okay, Jeannie, you need to close down because you have this is your type of license. Well, that doesn't cut it, because now you're violating the 14th Amendment, you're violating Article 4, and you're violating Article 2, Section 26 of the Arizona State Constitution, or is it 17, I believe, where it says you can't violate contracts, you can't impede on contracts of the businesses. You have no right to do that, as well as the government has no right to violate the rights of other businesses because they're not being equally treated under the law. You just said that, well, we're allowing certain businesses to stay open and forcing others to stay closed. That's not equal treatment under the law. That's just an arbitrary thing. And the CDC is not an elected body. The CDC is not a controlling factor in what we do. They make recommendations, and they've been all over the board. They've not been consistent. We know Fauci. We won't get into that, but there's issues with the whole CDC operation, what they're doing. But the bottom line is these businesses' rights are being violated. And as an oath taker, I think we need to change the discussion a little bit. What can we do from here to make things bring us back in line under a constitutional form of government. Because what we have here is we have a despotism running the state, taking over and interfering with the rights and privileges of the community. We have all these people, when their unemployment is stopped, $600 additional dollars, what is that going to do to our economy? We're just postponing the inevitable. All the revenue that comes in for the cities and counties in the state come from our businesses, people like Larry and Jeannie, and they support that. And we are butchering their ability to do that. It's the most insane thing I've ever seen.
Well, what you're not saying too, Randy, is that our suicide rates are going up. Domestic violence is going up. All these other things are also contributing to this by virtue of arbitrarily shutting down businesses and schools and everything else. And so I hear you loud and clear, as we've discussed before. And you're right. Wait till they feel the boomerang effect of this with sales taxes and payroll taxes and everything else.
Well, you're right. I sat on the board for Eve's Place for a year, which is a shelter for battered women and children. So I get a lot of statistics. The spousal abuse or domestic violence has gone up 225%. The opioid death rate has gone up considerably as well. So the impact of what we're doing has been a detriment on society. We have more people affected by suicide rate, opioid overdoses, and domestic violence than what's being attributed to COVID. How is that a justification?
Right. Randy, what's gotten so bad, and this isn't really for public consumption, Jerry won't be surprised by this, but we had a meeting with our medical examiner 2 days ago at the county. And he said, I'm sorry to report, but sadly, we're having to tell families with overdose deaths that we're simply going to only do a toxicology report because we have a good idea of what caused the death was, because we can't afford to hold the bodies in our morgue because of what's happening around us. So you're right. I mean, that's evidence thereof of what you just stated.
Well, I appreciate that. So my question is, well, a couple more points. There has been a county, I sent you guys a link to that. Washington County in Wisconsin unanimously voted to uphold their oath of office in the Constitution and said they do not, there will be no mandatory face mask laws, or I think closures as well, in their county. Now that's kind of, it's an acknowledgement that they're going against the governor's directives, but the governor has no authority to do what he did anyway. And that's because it's in our Constitution as well. The Article 5 is the governor's responsibility and his jurisdiction. His only jurisdiction is to enforce the laws of the state. He doesn't make laws. He doesn't have any executive authority over the citizens of Arizona. He only has executive authority over his employees, the agencies that are under his jurisdiction and responsibility. He can do executive orders on them, and he can order them to wear masks, or how they're going to conduct themselves when they go to a business. But he has no executive power over the citizenry. The legislature has the legislative powers, as you know, under Article 4. That's the only, it says shall in law is non-permissive, it is mandatory. They are the ones that make the law. And they cannot delegate any lawmaking authority to the governor. It's all unconstitutional. So we have a crisis is what we have. We have a constitutional crisis in the nation and in Arizona. And Jeannie Simmons and Larry Wendt are the victims of this, as well as every citizen in the state and the country. I'll let that go from here. I know some other people want to talk. We're on a time limit, but I would like to see this put on calendar for Maricopa County for a vote and resolution on condemning the executive orders as being unconstitutional and violating the rights of the citizens and businesses. Larry, did you have anything?
Yes, sir. Thanks for letting me talk to you folks. And just real quickly, disregard that picture of the Indian behind me. It's nothing racial. I just want to you know, I just like paintings of the Old West. And so I didn't want to
That makes two
offend
of us,
anybody
Larry.
right off. Yeah.
That makes two of us, so I agree with you.
Yeah, you got it. All right. So I own the Buffalo Chip Saloon and Steakhouse. I have for 22 years since I retired from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office there with Jerry Sheridan. And we've been through a lot, including an arson of our complete business 5 years ago, but we were able to rebuild because we knew what we had to do. We knew who we had to deal with to do it. And we knew the timelines that we had to work within. So we were able to build back from nothing to an $8 million a year business again because of the support of the community and because we knew what we needed to do. It has not been that way at all with this travesty I call the shutdowns. This started with our town mayor on March 15th. And we have been shut down in one way or the other, either with a curfew or all the other complete shutdowns, takeout only. We've been under shutdown now for 4.5 months. I will say this, and Jeannie spoke to it. I am a Class 6. I am a Class 6 because this license was purchased in 1958. I bought it in 1998. That was the best license to get. It had nothing to do with the amount of alcohol you served that we wanted to serve coming from law enforcement. I wanted to serve more food. And in fact, our average food sales before COVID and after have run from 61 to 67% food sales. We do live bull riding, we do entertainment, all with the focus of getting the family and their children in to our place. So we had lowered our capacity from 1,738 people inside and out to under 600 people with the coronavirus stuff. So much more than 50%. We had gone to all the social distancing guidelines, the face mask guidelines, everything that was required. It was just a shot in the gut when liquor control came out here again 2.5 weeks ago and said, you know what, the governor's changed his mind. We know your food sales are more. We know you comply with all the guidelines, all your staff's in face masks, but you're a Class 6, you've got to close by tomorrow morning. And I'm writing a memo right now to my staff. That's the 5th change of course for me and my staff in the last 4 months. And so it has a huge economic impact, not just on me. I'm not a big corporate, right? It's me. But my 121 staff, most of them single moms raising children, have been impacted terribly. They would still rather work, most of them, than collect the unemployment. When we were allowed to fire back up for the 2 or 3 weeks, we immediately got almost all of our staff back on board, and our sales were approaching what they were before. So it's not that they don't want to work. They want to work. They can make more here, even than the $840 a week. They can make more here. And so I just, you know, I feel like my hands are tied. I've enjoyed these 2 lawsuits. But you know how that works, Mr. Churchy. It's years from now and very little payback for what you put out now. And in the meantime, that Arizona Liquor Control Board holds my license in their fist and says, we will close you. You will have no chance to appeal for 90 days after we do that. And they've got me. Places right around me, we can't even do takeout because who's going to come to the Buffalo Chip and order a burger to go and sit in the parking lot in the 115-degree heat when they can go next door and order one, drink a beer with it, and have air conditioning. So that's my take on it.
Well, Larry and Randy, if I might, I think Randy, Jeannie, and Jerry, this is a perfect example. Larry and I have not talked at all. Now, some of Larry's team members have talked with the association and Dan Bogert, our COO, but what he just said is what I said about Mikhail's. So I'm just saying that we're in concert with one another as to why this was such a bad policy, because he is being penalized for making an investment that was done in 1955, I think is what I heard you say.
58.
58. And now, since he bought it in the late 90s, 98, he's being penalized for it, for making a smart investment in this business, in the restaurant industry. So here's what happened, if I remember it correctly. We got a call out of the blue from Buffalo, not the Buffalo Chip, but from Harold's, saying, hey, we don't know what's going on. Wes just shut us down. Did Wes shut you down too, Larry, from DLLC?
The actual agent's name was Mark Ramirez.
Okay.
But I had dealt with Coca there previously.
Yeah.
And so I spoke to him.
But Larry, weren't you shut down just shortly after Harold's was? Like a day or two?
3 days, yeah, about 3 days later. They had told me they were leaving my place to go shut Harold's down. And of course, we're all in this together. I called Danny over at Harold's and said, hey, buckle your seat belts. You're about to get a visit from liquor control. But it was actually about 3 days later.
Well, let me tell you what we're doing right now, because I think holistically and philosophically what Randy is saying, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I hear you about the constitutionality. I think it's a bigger issue, obviously, than Maricopa County. However, right now we are working for 3 distinct groups, entities: the Buffalo Chip, Harold's, and Wild Woman Saloon that's in Bison. It's right outside of Heber. And we said to one of the governor's staff members, and we have been for the past 2 weeks, you should not have closed these establishments down. Who cares what they were doing pre-COVID? You just heard from Larry what he was doing. And you know what's funny, and the name will go nameless, but a well-known restaurateur called me a month ago and said, Steve, you're the head of this industry. Your job is to protect us from ourselves. And I know what he meant. We've got bad actors out there. And I can tell you the Buffalo Chip is not one of them. Harold's is not one of them. Wild Woman Saloon's not one of them. And this is that gunshot approach that was wrong. So I will tell you, there is a glimmer of hope, Larry, in that we are making some headway with the governor's office and saying, look, it's so subjective. Why would you go back to pre-COVID when everyone's had to adjust their modeling, just as Jeannie said, to how they can operate their restaurant or establishment? And if they put tables like Harold's did on their dance floor and everyone's making their effort, then give them a chance. And especially given the fact that they have more in food sales than liquor sales. Now, that's not going to be true for some of the establishments in Old Town Scottsdale. I understand that's a different story. I get that. I understand where the governor's coming from. But in these instances, it's a different story. And so we're pushing hard. And I even had this conversation with the governor's chief of staff. And so, Larry, I don't want to give you a false hope, but I want you to know we're fighting for you. And we've had very direct conversations with Mr. Coca, where I will say voices were raised, because I just think this is very, very arbitrary in how they shut these establishments down.
Yeah,
very arbitrary.
Gary Sheridan, did you have anything?
I did. I just wanted to talk a little bit of philosophical. The principles of liberty. The virus is a contagious disease. There's many contagious diseases out there. So looking at it from the perspective of Jeannie and Larry, if you're out of work and you don't have liberty, you still may catch the virus. But if you're able to keep your job, your business open and jobs for the people people still may catch the virus. It's like the left, and I'm going to bash the governor here for a second, because he's not acting like somebody that understands, knows his constitutional duties. He's acting more like a tyrant. And he's not allowing this crisis to go to waste. And that's the way the left thinks. This is wrong. It's constitutionally wrong. I know they're arguing this out in court. I've read the governor's lawyers' arguments to the Arizona Supreme Court. They're wrong. It's a violation of the Arizona Constitution, what they're doing to Larry and Jeannie and the people that work there. And I don't know, Steve, if you heard what Larry talked about. Most of his employees are single moms, and they're the ones that are suffering because people are using this, and it's political. I think, Steve, you even said that in the beginning. It's, you know, the governor is succumbing to political pressure to do these things that are in violation of our civil rights, our liberties, and that's wrong. Larry should be able to hold his restaurant open. It's his responsibility and Jeannie's responsibility to take certain measures to help people prevent them from getting the disease. If they don't want to, it's like watching porn. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. Some people want to come and watch it, fine. But if you want to go to a restaurant and have a burger and a beer, you should be allowed to. If you don't want to, if you don't want to subject yourself to the virus, then don't go. It's the same thing with a mask. You don't want to wear a mask? That's your business. The governor, excuse me, Your Honor, the Board of Supervisors should not be mandating these things. It's a violation of our freedoms that the founding fathers guaranteed us when they wrote the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. And I'll get off my soapbox.
Look, I hear you. I hear you, and I don't like how any of this has gone down. And I will share with you that when you look at these numbers and how staggering they are and what this has done to a displaced workforce, let me give you three simple numbers. In the month of April alone, Arizona restaurants lost $815 million. Our daily payroll was $14 million a day. We're down to $2 million a day. The restaurant industry, through the association and our foundation, raised $400,000, and we put that out to all displaced workers in the form of $500 grants. And you would have thought that was $5 million to these people. It put groceries on the table. I went in, and a maitre d' came up to me in tears and hugged me. I never even had met this person. And they said, "Thank you for helping us. That $500 means more than you know." So I know what Larry's folks are going through. I know what Harold's folks are going through. I know what Jeannie's folks are going through, because Jeannie's not operating at pre-COVID numbers. Not at all. We were slated as an industry, get this, restaurants in the United States were slated to sell $900 billion with a B dollars worth of food this year in America. That's almost $1 trillion industry that we are. We're the most trusted industry in America because of what Larry does and what Danny does at Harold's and what Jeannie does at her place. So we've taken it in the chin, but I'm going to fight for these guys because I agree with Jerry on many fronts. Look, this masks vote, it was not a vote that I took pleasure in, but I also look at our public health. I'm seeing these daily numbers, and I know there's science for and against it. And I'm not going to even say we can agree to disagree, because I really don't think we do. But it was an unfortunate vote that we had to make, and an unfortunate thing we had to do. And it is, unfortunately, that is the case. However, I think we need to have, and I think what's going to come about after this is we're on the other side of COVID-19, is coming back and having some really serious conversations, like Randy mentioned, about what really are the roles of the state, whether you're a governor or you're the president. People have argued that President Trump has kicked things to governors that he shouldn't have, and that governors have kicked things to local municipalities and counties that they shouldn't have. But we can't lose sight of it, and I think it's a debate worth having without any question.
Well, it's you know, I appreciate what you're saying, but the bottom line is it's not up for debate. It's in the Constitution. It is the law. It is laid out that way. The governor had no authority to say, well, I'm going to punt this decision to the local elected local officials. They got no more authority than he does. All they have to do is follow what the legislature writes. They write the laws, and the laws have to be in accordance to the Constitution. Just because it's a written law doesn't mean it's legal. This law that gave the executive powers to the governor, it's unconstitutional. I hate to tell you, because they delegated their legislative authority outside the Constitution to the governor. And now the governor has said he's going to fine people. He doesn't have the authority to fine people or put them in jail. This is tyranny. And what I'm asking is what, as I understand, you're talking basically mostly as a restaurant hotel board chairman, are you not?
I'm the president of the Restaurant Association, yeah.
Okay, yeah, president of the restaurant. So you're working from that aspect as well, which is commendable. I thank you for that. They need to have the support. But also I'm asking you as a oath-taking supervisor for Maricopa County, if you're acknowledging that these are wrong and that you agree that there's some constitutional issues here, what is it that we can do as a board? And I'm just saying, you know, what is it as a supervisor for the board can we do to put this on calendar and have debate in the public? Say, look, these are issues. It's a vote for the public. You, the people want to hear and have a voice before you say, this is Maricopa County. As an oath taker, you have a mandate to uphold the Constitution against unconstitutional orders, no matter where they come from, because it's an individual oath. It is not a group oath that Maricopa County takes. It's an individual oath. Larry took it when he was with the Sheriff's Department. Jerry Sheridan's taken it several times through his promotions in his offices. I've taken it many times. And it's not just a perfunctory act as a ceremony that we go through. It has meaning and it has purpose, and it has been ignored because nobody in office has really paid much attention to what their role is under the Constitution and just what that means, particularly our governor and our legislators for sitting mute. But this is an opportunity to at least make a message and at least get the dialogue started, whether if it goes or not. At least have an opportunity to have the dialogue started from the community who actually runs government, because the Constitution, as I stated in Article 2, Section 2, says all political power is inherent in the people. That's us. The power to make law comes from the people. I'm asking for the people to have a voice before your board as to what we are seeing happening and what we are saying is wrong about it, both constitutionally, morally, and ethically.
Well, Randy, let me share with you this, that there are many that think this way, the way that you just communicated, especially in the legislature. One of them being Kelly Townsend. I don't know if you've had any conversations with Kelly.
I have. She came to my meeting 2 weeks ago.
But I had one last night with her. There are others in the Senate. There are others that both in my capacity as a county supervisor and as the head of this restaurant industry that have said, we don't understand how some of these things came about. And just given, not necessarily what you just said, but let's take it a step further, what Larry's going through, what Harold is going through, what many restaurateurs are going through, and saying, how can it be that arbitrary? How can a crisis be allowed to do what they're doing? And there are some that I think are going to be going to the Attorney General and asking for him to opine on this very measure you just said about authority and how it goes. And I certainly don't want to tip the hand of anyone else's mission here. So I want to be respectful of other people's opinions that are going to be doing this. But I can tell you that is from what I understand in the works.
Well, I hope so. I made this suggestion to legislator individuals 7 or 8 weeks ago. that there's state statute that says that if any legislator believes that a entity, a city, county, or municipality is violating state law or the Constitution, they can make a complaint to the Attorney General and he shall investigate. I suggested this almost two months ago, and here we are. So my faith in things working the way they're supposed to is not that strong. And that's why I say, as an individual, to punt the opportunity to make a statement and at least have the people be heard to another entity, I think is you might want to reconsider, because I think this is an opportunity for you to come out and say, you know what, let's at least have this heard. If you can get, I know you can't put anything on calendar, it has to be done by Clint, but you can get, I think, 2 other people and say, look, let's at least put this on the roster, on the calendar, to at least have it heard, say, you know, this is damaging not only to the individual rights under the Constitution and the civil rights. They're 2 separate things. Civil rights is equal treatment under the law, and your constitutional rights are what we were born with, and the Constitution protects, not grants. But this is a situation where we need to come out as elected officials and say, not me, but hopefully soon, and say, look, we need to have this discussion. No one's having this discussion, at least. No one's even willing to come before, put it before their committees or their boards or councils and say, look, this is you, everything you just said morally, condemning it as being wrong is absolutely right. But yet, why are we not willing to have this discussion in official capacity? That's what's concerning to me.
I got it. And I think it's fair. And let me talk to Clint. I think there's a time and a place, and this is going to sound like an excuse. It's not one, but we also are preparing for an election right now that's taking place in 10 days. And we've got people saying, we're scared of COVID, we're not showing up. We've got coolers in our parking garage in our medical examiner's office, just in case unfortunate deaths happen, and we've got to put them and utilize those. So I think there's a time and a place for this conversation. I absolutely do. And I think it should be 2-pronged. I think the conversation or dialogue, which to your point, Randy's a better way of putting it than debate, needs to happen. Secondly, I think we have to have a legal basis too, with the county, with the Attorney General opining. And I think there's enough legislators who are going to ask for that very thing you just mentioned, because he should opine. And I think if you had that dual prong approach, I think the clarity is going to be welcomed by many, not just you and me and others, but many people who may not even understand the Constitution to the degree that you do, but many who feel, just as someone who works, they don't even own a business, but who has been impacted by this, feel as though it's just not right.
It's Larry Wynn. Could I get about 30 more seconds?
Absolutely.
Time? All right. I just want to reinforce a couple of things. I know there's a lot of discussion pre-COVID, post-COVID, what your food sales were. I'm saying that our food sales, we're under constant audit with insurance, liquor board. We always have a running total on what our food sales are versus our liquor sales. We're always above 60% before COVID and after COVID. We took every step, including eliminating all of our entertainment, dancing, bull riding, karaoke, dance lessons, everything that we did here to comply with the governor's orders. We were shut down without so much as an inspection of our records or asking me what we would change. We were just closed arbitrarily. There has not been one person, an employee, and we have had 120 of them that have tested positive for COVID here at the Buffalo Chip.
Wow.
Not one.
That's impressive.
We're not even, and Steve, you know, we've got 4,000 people in here on a Friday night. We don't even know of any customers of ours that have tested positive, because most of our events are outdoors. But so I just want to reinforce, it was arbitrary, and I will do whatever I can to fight against it. If you guys would like me to come talk to anybody, I still talk to Andy Kanasik and folks like, if you'd like me to come tell our story of woe or write something, I'd be glad to do it. I'll be glad to talk to any committee. I'm meeting with Representative Townsend next Tuesday, but I appreciate any help you can give us.
Well, Larry,
to put our staff back.
We're going to continue to sound the alarm like we have with the governor's office, not weekly, but daily. We've already sent a letter referencing your establishment, just like yours, saying how arbitrary this is and unfair. And I will continue to call the governor's chief of staff, especially in light of yesterday with the continuance of this, because there was no end in sight. Now, listen, I think it's going to be the first week of August, personally, from what I can glean, but still, it's been too long. And I will tell you this, though, Larry, I do think some establishments, bars that went above and beyond, that went overboard and did not do the things you're talking about, I think they should stay closed.
Without a doubt.
Because they brought it on themselves. They brought it, and I gave fair warning. I gave fair warning to these people.
And coming from law enforcement, and Jerry will tell you this, believe me, I'm for law enforcement, but you have to be fair and impartial in your enforcement of the law. You have to give a person the opportunity to comply, not necessarily the knowledge, but it's always better to inform than arrest. And so this was just done arbitrarily, and I have complied with every inch of it and would continue to do so, but I haven't been allowed that input. And I agree with Mr. Miller, it's totally unconstitutional.
Well, we're going to continue to push forward, I guarantee you, and we'll be in touch next week.
Thank you.
Okay. How are we going to know the progress, or when you say you'll be in touch? How is that going to look?
Well, I'm speaking to Larry about, when I talk to the governor's office, I'll let him know what kind of movement we're making and what we feel is happening as far as trying to get him reopened.
Okay. I personally, well, not just me, but the governor doesn't care. He's already made a public statement. He's not relinquishing any power and authority that he's been given. And his position isn't going to change. It hasn't. I don't know what his objective is, but I really appreciate Larry sharing the statistics. He's got, how many staff do you have, Larry? 120?
We had 120 until March 15th, and we were back up to 78. Even after the shutdowns. That's how many of our staff were willing to come back to work.
Okay, and that's 78 people who have not tested positive. And that's thousands of customers.
Actually tested.
Right.
Well, Randy,
People have been testing because whenever they have any symptom, we err on the side of caution and say, go get tested. We're paying for it. You go do it. We have not had one test positive in 4 months. And we have tens of thousands of followers on Facebook, and I have not heard from one customer that they've contracted anything while at the Buffalo Chip, with the testing, the tracing, and everything else going on.
Well, this is a common theme this is a common theme, and this is what's so concerning, is that we're reacting to the COVID, which is like a cold, the same virus as a cold, but it's respiratory. And yes, there has been some deaths. We're not discounting that, but the fact remains that this has been, from the information and research and videos and doctors that I've been watching, professionals, this has been probably less serious than the flu season. And we are killing our businesses. We're violating our constitutional rights, and not one city, county, or legislative body is willing to at least have that dialogue. What the hell is going on?
well, Randy, let me tell you this, though. We have worked with the Ducey administration, and I can tell you things would be different if we hadn't. You would see us operating at a lower percentage. You would see the restaurant reopening that occurred in May far different than what it is. So I can tell you, and I'm not speaking in defense of anyone, but I can tell you the Restaurant Association has worked to change a lot of things as this impacted restaurants. and we're successful in doing so. So we didn't agree with everything. I certainly don't agree with what's happened to Larry, what's happened to Danny and others. But we are continuing to be that voice and will continue to do so.
Thank you.
Jeannie, did you have anything you wanted to add real quick?
I do have one question. So, Steve, you're part of the restaurant board. Is that what you are?
No, I'm the president of the association. So I serve at the pleasure of the board.
Okay. So does this board, when they meet, do they talk to any business owners? Do they have anybody in there? Or
Oh, yeah, these
is
are
it just
restaurateurs.
the board?
These are restaurant owners that are on my board.
Okay. They're all restaurant owners?
Yeah, yeah, from all segments of the industry, from quick service to fine dining to Shamrock Foods to Cisco Foods to suppliers, purveyors. Yeah.
So they all have some type of say into what's going on, and they're all meeting. You said something about like the mask mandate, and you met with like the governor before he made a decision and stuff like that. Is that what you were talking about earlier?
No, not on the mask mandate. I'm talking about on the reopening that occurred of restaurants after restaurants were shut down. The reopening guidelines.
So you guys talked about that before.
Correct. And even as with the reducing occupancy to 50%, we talked through with that and what the options were as well.
Okay, so there are some businesses that are chiming in on what's going on in reopening,
100%.
closing,
No,
and stuff like that.
And ongoing, Jeannie, it's ongoing, and the governor's office is having stakeholder meetings with a multitude of restaurants, including the association and some not including the association, from mom and pops to chains to everyone. So there are many, there's no question that the industry has had input into some of these guidelines, even though we don't agree with all of them, but we've absolutely had industry and have made changes as such. Except with Larry and the Heralds, it's been very disappointing, and that's why we felt it was incumbent upon us. I think we're at 2 letters. I know Dan wasn't able to join us today, but I think we've sent 2 letters to the governor's office recommending outlines and guidelines like Larry suggested as to why Larry should be allowed to reopen. And here's what Larry's willing to do as a construct of reopening by not having dancing, by having the separation, all of those things for their consideration. And that's the drum we continue to beat.
So
Steve, just
is there?
I am on.
Oh, you are, Dan. Oh, good. Good. Dan, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, the one thing I would say is we put input in fact proactively as well, even before one of these topics come up. We've kind of tried to anticipate the directions they're going in and do proactive communication in the governor's office. The one thing I'll say is they don't always listen to us. And that's how you ended up with the executive order on 6s and 7s. We had put in communication in the governor's office far before that executive order saying, if you're considering anything related to bars, do not do it by license type, because it's a very bad metric. It's hard to enforce. And unfortunately, they chose to go in that direction anyways.
Well, and a couple others, Jeannie, just so you know, they wanted to include staff in that 50% capacity number. And we said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And they agreed. And fire code versus capacity, all these other versus tables, excuse me. There's a lot of. Dan, anything else that you want to add that may have not been discussed?
You know, just and I know we've probably beaten this horse to death, but just to add on, one of the biggest reasons that the current executive order doesn't work, not only does it kind of is it discriminatory based off of very similar operations but with different license types, but the other thing it does is there's no way for DLLC to actually enforce this mechanism on all 6s and 7s, which means it's basically only the people that they're able to get to that are getting shut down. Everyone else is going to be able to continue to operate, and it creates a very uneven playing field for businesses. And we've made that very clear to them as well.
Can I ask a question regarding the determination of how they came up with, well, certain licenses are going to be shut? Is there some connection? Did they show you any statistics or metrics or scientific proof that alcohol consumption contributes to the spread of the COVID? I mean, how did they come up with this? What did they show you guys to justify this arbitrary, if it's not arbitrary, this decision? I mean, it makes no sense to me.
You know, Randy, they didn't show us any statistics, if that's what you're getting at. So they don't have anything that shows a relationship between an establishment serving alcohol versus an establishment that's not serving alcohol. I can tell you the situation that they were trying to get to was the downtown Scottsdale and Tempe clubs. And, you know, that's why we had indicated to them that license type was a very bad way of getting at those folks. Because even some of those places down there that were acting as clubs, they don't have a 6 or 7, they have a 12. And they operate as a restaurant through the day, and then the last 3 hours at night, they kind of turn into a club. So I know that was the situation they were trying to get to, but we have repeatedly, almost every time we have an opportunity to talk to DHS or the CDC, we've asked them, what kind of statistics do you have that show that restaurants and or bars are a significant contributor to the spread of the virus? And so far that has not been produced.
It can't be. Since this started, I have, and Jerry has too, we have been involved in rallies downtown. Thousands of people, about 2,500 to 3,000 people on 2 occasions were there. I was there. I continue to hold several meetings a month with 60 to 65 people in these, and not one of us has gotten sick. We practice, you know, common sense with the exposure risk and these type of things, but we don't see all the hype is being presented to us, the fear mongering as a control factor over the people. And when we participate in these things, and all our friends and contacts participate in them, and no one reports any illness, maybe 1 or 2, but they're out for a day or 2, and then they come back and they say, we're fine. It's really concerning to see the trampling of the constitutional, just the Constitution in general and the operation of government over the people. It leads us all to believe that it is fear-mongering for the purposes of conditioning responses from the people, how to react and how to get compliance. And it's been accelerated ever since Trump became into office. The fear-mongering, the attempts. I mean, it's been politicized to the point of nausea. Jerry, did you have anything you want to add real quick?
Sure. It's about 1% of the population of Maricopa County have been affected by the coronavirus. 1% we're talking about. So, like I said earlier, people never let a crisis go to waste. And tyrants love a good crisis. And, you know, they love emergency measures, and that's what they are doing. They have become certain elected officials, high elected officials, have become tyrants in this case. When 1% of the population is affected, and we're overreacting and ruining people's lives. And like Steve said earlier, and I know somebody that actually was a reporter from the AP yesterday I talked to, who had interviewed the medical examiner, and they were talking about one of the reasons the freezers are so full at the medical examiner is because of the suicide and the opioid and the spinoff from the isolation and the housing. It's not just because of the people dying from coronavirus. It's all these other measures to keep us safe have created these things. And then the destruction of the business, the tax base. And, you know, Steve, I don't know what you're going to do for, you know, I'm worried about this when I take office in January 1st. What am I going to do for my budget next year? When you don't have the tax revenue to come in to help me rebuild the sheriff's office. I'm very concerned about that. And all of this is a synergistic effect of an overreaction, a political overreaction to a virus. You know, mankind has been dealing with viruses ever since we evolved, and we will continue forever. And some viruses have been way more destructive than the coronavirus. And we've survived without these exorbitant measures and unconstitutional measures to boot.
Well,
I've
Jerry,
had
the other
also,
part of that is the inability to have funerals, right? Because people can't have that. Our funeral homes are backing up too, and so that's another. Yet to your point, it's a ripple effect. Maybe it's third or fourth in line, but it's still a ripple effect. And we'll always have money for your budget, Mr. Sheridan. Come on.
that would
I've
be
been there.
nice. But you know, if we look at politically how this is all evolving with the Antifa, Black Lives Matter, the defund of law enforcement, if the crippling of our economy affects all our budgets. The state budget just came out several days ago, and their first projections in February that we would have a shortfall on the not operating reserves, but the general fund. Now they're predicting that if we can get our restaurants and gyms and everything back open, they predict a zero balance. In other words, there won't be a shortfall, but there will be no money as well. So no shortfall is being presented as being positive, but a zero balance is positive. And I don't understand the logic in that. But if we're looking at the defunding of the police, Jerry, if they don't have any, and Chicago's calling for a national police force. When I was in college in the 70s, this is what they talked about, the model penal code, which was a national penal code stripping the states of their individual penal code and lawmaking ability and putting it under the national state police. Now, this is what we are looking at when we talk about defunding the police, crippling our economy, crippling our budgets. There will be no budgetary ability to rebuild our police departments when they already cut them down. And Jerry, you may be faced with the prospect of, well, if they're going to defund the police, where does that put you? And what is that going to do when they have the national police force that the liberal cities are calling for and saying we need to have a unified police force so there's unity and we have a common process of how things are done. This is where they're going. It's communism. And I know we didn't want to go here today, but that's the reality. This is a deliberate stripping of financial independence of the states and local communities by destroying our economies. And this destructive force of keeping our restaurants closed, our bars closed, arbitrarily and capriciously, I might add, and totally ignoring the Constitution is where we need our local elected officials to make a stand and say, you know what, this has got to stop. Because it's an individual oath, like I said.
Randy, I'm the eternal optimist, and I know that with the current Board of Supervisors, with the 4 good Republicans on there, I won't have to worry about them defunding the sheriff's office to the point where I won't be able to perform my functions as the sheriff.
Well, let's hope the revenue is continuing to flow to where they can do that, because that's where it's all tied to, the revenue.
Jerry, you'll have a new helicopter too, my friend. We just voted on that 2 days ago. Hey, Randy, I've got to go because I've got a 2 o'clock, but Jeannie, can I give you my email address? Because we want to help you on any issue restaurant related. Larry, we already have you and your contact info, but it's just pretty easy. It's steve@azrestaurant.org.
Yep, got it.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Sorry, I've got to run to my next one.
That's all right. We need to turn it off anyway, but thank you for coming. Anybody, Larry, Jeannie, any last comment? Dan?
This is Larry. I appreciate what you guys can do on it. And I go back to, the question came up, well, why did this come about? And what we were told is, well, there were a few bad actors. Then take the action against the few bad actors. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater is what happened here.
Well, they can do that without COVID. That's their responsibility. It has nothing to do with COVID.
No, it doesn't.
Jerry?
All right. No, good. Thank you, Randy, for putting this together. And Larry, it's good to see that you're got your IT person together and you're able to join us.
She's sitting right here because she knew, and I'm going to talk to you about her later, but she made sure I didn't drop this call or not get it. I had a thing with the president 2 weeks ago and we couldn't make it happen. And I had to, I got a chance to talk to him and I couldn't make it work.
Like the president,
Like Donald Trump.
Holy cow, and you
yeah.
screwed that up?
And I screwed that up because I'm inept, but that's all right.
Well, I got to get out to your restaurant there pretty soon,
Please.
Larry.
Well, you know what? Call ahead so I can tell you if we're open.
I'll do that. Thank you.
You're a bulldog. It's been good talking to you.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Randy.
Randy.
Thank you. If no one else has anything,
Thank you.
Dan, you got last comment?
No, just, know that we're here. Any issues come up, let us know, and we're happy to incorporate that. And just to know, the more stories we have, like Larry's, the better we're able to advocate. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I've got 2 gyms I'm working with too. In fact, I just got a call from one here. This is the restaurants. If you look at the gyms too, our immune system needs practice, but we also have to be healthy. It's almost like a deliberate attempt to make us sick by shutting down those places that help keep us healthy and then forcing us to wear a face diaper that does nothing but make us sicker and unhealthy.
Mhm. Right.
But anyway, I appreciate everyone coming, and hopefully we get something of this. I do remember Steve mentioning that he would talk to Clint. I do think this needs to be on the calendar for the people to speak about and not punt the responsibility to legislators and the Attorney General. That is the problem that we face in our country, is everyone's willing to pass the buck, and we need to stop. We need to have our elected officials take a stand with their individual oath and say, no, we're going to address this. The people are the ones that have the power, and the people are going to have the right to have a voice. We are left out of this with our voice. No one has asked any one of us as a citizen, what do you think? Should we do this or shouldn't we? It's all just decisions made by those who feel that they have the power of control over the people, and it's got to stop.
Thank you.
All right, I'll let you guys go. I appreciate it. We'll stay in touch. Thank you, Jeannie. I'll be out there again soon. And Larry, I'll give you a call when it comes open. Maybe Jerry will let me know, and we'll go out there and have a beer with you.
I told Jerry, I need to do a fundraiser for him, but until he gets me open, and that's what I'm holding over his head, that I can't do the fundraiser if they won't even let me open.
Well, Larry, grow a damn pear and open the place.
Yeah, I tried that with Ernie and it didn't work too well. How you doing, Stacey?
Hey, so Coca,
Yeah,
is he former Scottsdale cop?
he is.
I went to the academy with that guy.
Yes, you did.
I'll slap him around.
Good luck. He is so pompous. I spoke to him and he basically said, you know what? I am a government agency. I work for Doug Ducey, and if he tells me to do it, I'm going to do it. Not only that, I'm not just going to enforce liquor control. I'm going to enforce anything he says, from health code to noise complaint. I'll be out there, Larry, so don't screw with us. That was basically it.
He should not be holding that position.
No.
He violated his oath already.
Yeah.
You're right, he's pompous. This is terrible, and he should be reported.
Yeah.
That
Spoken
needs
like
to be
a true Scottsdale cop.
Oh, gee, that's probably not nice.
No.
Yeah, well, he wasn't even a good, at least Jerry and I were chiefs. He never even made it that far, and now he's running liquor control.
Yeah.
Sounds like
All right.
CPS.
Yeah,
All right, guys.
you got it. All right.
I'll let you go.
Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, Dan. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye, guys.
Thank you.